All right, so during Trump's impeachment trial, the House managers and Trump's lawyers were asked, the House prosecutors have stated over and over again that President Trump was perpetrating a big lie when he repeatedly claimed that the election was stolen from him and that he actually won the election by a landslide. Are the prosecutors right when they claim Trump was telling a big lie? Or in your judgment, did Trump actually win the election? This is kind of like what I'm dealing with.
I know.
The House manager said, as we all know, President Trump did lose the election by 7 million votes and 306 electoral votes in 61 courts the president went to. He lost the election, he lost the court case, and the Electoral College has spoken. And day after day he told his supporters false, outlandish claims of why this election was rigged. The counsel for Trump said, my judgment here is irrelevant in these proceedings. While they were struck by the impeachment manager's presentation, these Republicans said that the House Democrats did not prove Trump's words led to the violent actions. They compared the January 6th riot to last summer's racial justice protest and criticized how the trial is being handled. Senator Ted Cruz said a direct link from Trump to the pro-Trump riot was strikingly absent. The Texas Republican claimed that there's not a political candidate in the country, including every single one of the Democratic senators, who hasn't used the same language as Trump, who told his supporters to fight like hell. After a 2-day effort by Democrats to sync up Trump's words to the violence that followed, including through raw and emotive video footage, defense lawyers suggested that Democrats have typically engaged in the same rhetoric as Trump, but in trying to draw that equivalency, the defenders minimized Trump's months-long efforts to undermine the election results and his urging of followers to do the same. Democrats say that long campaign rooted in a big lie laid the groundwork for the mob that assembled outside the Capitol and stormed inside. 5 people died. Trump's lawyers made an abbreviated presentation that used less than 3 of their allotted 16 hours. Their quick pivot to the Democrats' own words deflected from the central question of the trial, whether Trump incited this assault on the Capitol, and instead aimed to place impeachment managers and Trump adversaries on the defensive. His lawyers contended he was merely telling his rally crowd to support primary challenges against his adversaries and to press for sweeping election reform. Trump was simply pushing his followers to fight for sweeping election reforms. It's like, no, he wasn't. He's like, stop the steal.
That's what I thought. It was pretty clear to me.
Okay, and holding big tech companies responsible, all of which would be protected free speech under the Constitution. Trump's defense lawyers repeated their own videos over and over. Some Democrats said they were a distraction or a false equivalence with Trump's behavior. So what they had done, if you're not quite following or getting this, is Trump's lawyers gathered up a whole lot of video footage of Democrats at their rally saying we need to fight for our country, we need to fight for what's right. We need to fight against our opponents. Okay, so then they gathered all that up against the Democrats saying freedom of speech, this is all that Trump was doing. But it's like, no, Trump was saying fight to stop the steal, which was a lie, and march to the Capitol and stop the steal and save our republic.
The only thing he didn't do, like a football coach would do, is yell and scream louder. You know.
Well, Mo Brooks did that though, because Mo Brooks would be like, say something, then he'd say, I think Mo Brooks and one of the sons would be like, and louder, louder.
Well,
and it's like,
so that's again, you build it up, you build it up, you build it up.
And that was all before Trump came out.
Yeah. See, this is.
And then Trump's like, march to the Capitol and stop the steal.
Yeah. Those other guys should have been.
And they're trying to now
too.
say, He was rallying the crowd to support primary challenges against his adversaries and to press for sweeping election reform. Like, no, he wasn't. And to fight for sweeping election reforms and hold big tech companies responsible. Yeah, sure, he talked about all that stuff too, but that was the whole deal was go to the Capitol, stop the steal. And there was no steal. That never surfaced. So again, this constant accusation with no evidence. In every court he went to, he lost the case. And then the Supreme Court is like, we're not even going to hear it. Yeah. And that was what he was banking on, and stacked the court to hear this case and win in his favor. In their defense of Trump, lawyers accused Democrats of rank hypocrisy and hatred of the former president during his impeachment trial in the Senate. Defense attorneys led by David Schoen and Michael Van der Veen used some of the same tactics used by Trump's opponents earlier this week. They showed dozens of video clips where prominent Democrats could be seen using incendiary rhetoric similar to Trump's own.
Inciting, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The lawyers also argued that the former president's words were protected speech. Well, we heard the word fight a lot, said Maine Senator Angus King, an independent who caucuses with the Democrats. Colorado Senator Michael Bennet said it felt like the lawyers were erecting straw men to then take them down rather than deal with the facts. We weren't asking them fight like hell to overthrow an election, Blumenthal said, and other Democrats were heard in last night's news saying they weren't talking to or encouraging or inciting an angry mob to march to the Capitol and fight like hell to overturn an election. The defense team also suggested that some of the rioters on January 6 were members of Antifa and other extremist groups supposedly allied with the left-leaning party. Previously, videos from the scene showed members of the Proud Boys or other right-wing militia groups near the U.S. Capitol. I gotta hear it change. So, nearly a dozen Trump supporters charged in connection with U.S. Capitol insurrection have said that Antifa and other left-wing groups weren't involved in the attack. Debunking a false flag conspiracy theory that is gaining popularity in the pro-Trump orbit. The baseless claim that left-wing infiltrators were responsible for the violent attack has been promoted by former President Donald Trump's impeachment lawyers, several GOP lawmakers, and at least one speaker at the Conservative Political Action Conference. That was the CPAC thing. Friday, February 26th morning. Okay, and again, we have record of President Trump blaming Antifa. This is me saying this. And again, we have record of President Trump blaming Antifa, because back at the very beginning when I first started reading this, I'm quoting this again. When House Minority Kevin McCarthy finally reached the president on January 6th and asked him to publicly and forcefully call off the riot, the president initially repeated the falsehood that it was Antifa that had breached the Capitol. McCarthy refuted that claim and told the president that these were Trump supporters. Many of the alleged rioters facing charges also embraced this conspiracy. But according to a CNN review of court documents, nearly a dozen defendants have explicitly pushed back, saying that they and other Trump supporters deserve the credit for storming the Capitol, not Antifa. So the Trump supporters themselves are even saying it wasn't Antifa, the ones who stormed the Capitol. There's a lot of memes and posts flying around saying that the people who were fighting last night were all Antifa provocateurs, etc., defendant Jose Padilla allegedly posted to Facebook one day after the January 6th attack. I just want to say that as a first-hand observer of every point of last night, that it was not Antifa. They were patriots who were trying to restore the Republic. Another alleged Capitol rioter, Jonathan Mellis, posted, "Don't you dare try to tell me that people are blaming this on Antifa and BLM. We proudly take responsibility for storming the castle. We also used a vulgar term to imply that the left-wing groups were too cowardly to pull off an attack. At a Senate hearing about the security failures, Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin brazenly promoted false claims that the mob was full of fake Trump protesters and agents provocateurs. Most Republicans on the panel did not embrace these conspiracies. One Capitol riot defendant called out GOP lawmakers for blaming Antifa. Thomas Robertson, a police officer from Rocky Mountain, Virginia, touted his ties to law enforcement and conservative groups. He has since been fired from the police department, according to a press release. I was in the Capitol building 2 days ago, Robertson posted to Facebook. According to court documents, I am a pro-gun group, Virginia Citizens Defense League member, NRA member, and a serving soldier and police officer. Damage control by the Republicans in D.C. is trying to say it was Antifa. It wasn't. Possible somewhere there? Of course. Caused it? Nope. He was charged. Okay, so now he was a police officer from Rocky Mountain, Virginia. He was charged alongside Jacob Fracker, a colleague from the Rocky Mountain Police who was also fired. The Pentagon says Robertson previously was in the U.S. Army Reserve and deployed to Iraq during the war, and that Fracker is currently a corporal in the Virginia National Guard. Both men pleaded not guilty at a virtual federal court hearing in D.C. Prosecutors said they recovered a video from the phone of one of the infamous zip tie guys who was photographed in the Senate chamber holding plastic handcuffs. In the video, the man allegedly is heard saying, "Don't break, S-H-I-T, no vandalizing, S-H-I-T, we ain't no GD Antifa." Another defendant even implored his fellow rioters to take pride in their actions that day. Be embarrassed and hide if you need to, but I was there. It was not Antifa at the Capitol. It was freedom-loving patriots who were desperate to fight for the final hope of our republic, tweeted Brandon Straka, who spoke at a Stop the Steal rally on the eve of the insurrection. Brandon Straka, a gay Trump supporter who launched the hashtag #WalkAway social media campaign encouraging voters to leave the Democratic Party, has been arrested in connection with the assault on the U.S. Capitol this month. Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General, says that those who stormed the Capitol yesterday were not Trump supporters. They have been confirmed to be Antifa. He took to Facebook to advance a conspiracy theory that the people who overtook the Capitol were not Trump supporters but members of Antifa. He took to Facebook to advance a conspiracy theory that the people who overtook the Capitol were not. Do I have this repeat? Those who stormed the Capitol yesterday were not Trump supporters. They have been confirmed to be Antifa, Paxton wrote. Violence is not the answer. Paxton's post cited two sources, a screenshot of a tweet by right-wing journalist Paul Sperry and a screenshot of a Washington Times article with the headline, quote, "Facial recognition firm claims Antifa infiltrated Trump protesters who stormed Capitol," end quote. On Wednesday, January 6th, as Capitol Hill police removed the rioters from the Capitol, Paxton published something similar. People who stormed the building following a Trump rally are not Trump supporters, he tweeted, citing the screenshot of Perry's tweet. Breaking, all caps, former FBI agent on the ground at U.S. Capitol just texted me and confirmed that at least one busload of Antifa thugs infiltrated peaceful demonstrators as part of a false Trump flag ops. Sperry's tweet reads, Paxton's second source, alleging that Wednesday's mob is confirmed to be Antifa, the Washington Times article, was published about 8:15 p.m. Wednesday by news and opinion writer Rowan Scarborough. The story sources an unnamed retired military officer who told the Times that the firm XR Vision used its software to do facial recognition of protesters and matched two Philadelphia Antifa members to two men inside the Senate. The newspaper has since retracted the report, but not before Representative Matt Gaetz, Republican Florida, cited it later that day on the House floor, saying that Some of the people who breached the Capitol today were not Trump supporters. They were masquerading as Trump supporters and were in fact members of the violent terrorist group Antifa. XR Vision, a facial recognition technology company based in Singapore, issued a statement to PolitiFact and BuzzFeed News Thursday morning saying that the company sent the Washington Times a cease and desist letter asking it to retract the story and issue an apology. XR Vision software identified 2 members of a neo-Nazi organization and a QAnon supporter, not members of Antifa.
Oh.
The company said...
Okay, isn't there someone we can go to get to the bottom of this?
Well,
it's like, really?
It all finally was revealed. The truth was revealed, so then they had to retract the story.
Oh, it's just ridiculous. It's like all the...
So the story goes out. These other leading key people pick it up, start tweeting it, Facebooking it. All the Patriot supporters throw it all out on Facebook. I saw it right away, too, like right after the Capitol breach happened, like the next day. One predominant Trump patriot I know very well and have been corresponding with, right away, she's like, these were not Trump supporters or patriots, this was Antifa. I'm thinking, how do you know that so fast? Oh, and she said, a busload. I'm like, how do they know that already? And then, it wasn't a matter of days. It's all like, nope, this is Proud Boys. Nope, this is QAnon. Nope, this is Oath Keepers. Nope, this is Promise Group, whatever. Nope, there's no Antifa revealing itself or showing itself whatsoever. Even during the Black Lives Matter stuff, I'm just like, there's no one that's actually coming forth as, I haven't seen a single face yet. Mm-hmm. That they're like, oh, you're Antifa. This Antifa thing is like ghostly.
Well, yeah.
It gets thrown out there, and then they're either ghosts or it's made up, or Trump is making it up to constantly Antifa, and it's like, no, it's actually Trump supporters, patriots, ex-military, wannabe military, police officers that all believe you, President Trump.
Yeah.
And they're all here to save the day from your big lie. The company said it distributed that imagery to a handful of individuals for private consumption only. So the imagery of the facial recognition of the neo-Nazi QAnon supporter, the company said it distributed that imagery to a handful of individuals for private consumption only. The company said it does not know the identity of the retired military officer who gave the Washington Times the information it based its report on. The Times issued a correction to the story after an inquiry from PolitiFact, saying that the Washington Times erroneously reported late Wednesday that facial recognition technology backed up that speculation and identified 2 Antifa members. In fact, XR Vision has not identified any members of that far-left movement as being part of the attack. Paxton's office did not respond to a request for comment. Then this is the other problem. When you get these Trump supporters and believers, when you find out the truth and now you want to go back to them with the truth or tell them the truth or get a response from them, they don't want to have anything to do with you. Now, the XR Vision
just like the
corrected it.
Facebook people.
The Washington Times issued, a correction. All the apologies were done. It was all corrected. Then you go back to those who picked up the lie and spread it around and be like, let's, can we talk about this? They'll have nothing to do with you. And that's what I'm running into all of it. They'll have nothing to do with you. As Wednesday's events turned chaotic, Trump himself identified the mob as his own supporters in a video posted to Twitter where he asked them to disperse peacefully, adding, "We love you. You're very special." One of the rioters, identified in multiple photographs, Jake Angeli, also known as a Q shaman, easily spotted in his horned fur cap, rebuffed allegations that he was a masquerading member of Antifa. I am not Antifa or Black Lives Matter. I am a QAnon and digital soldier, Angeli posted to Twitter. Others recorded videos from inside the Capitol identifying themselves as patriots included Jenny Cudd, a former Midland mayoral candidate who said she broke into House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office. She told the Midland Reporter Telegram without offering evidence that Antifa activists broke through Capitol barriers and assaulted police officers before she arrived. Paxton published 2 social media posts following Wednesday's pro-Trump riot at Capitol Hill saying that the rioters were not Trump supporters but Antifa. Paxton based his claim on 2 sources, a deleted tweet and a retracted Washington Times article. Beyond those dubious sources, there's no evidence showing that those who stormed the Capitol were Antifa. And just recently reported as of March 12th, federal prosecutors have now charged more than 300 people and arrested more than 280 in connection with the events of January 6th. The alleged rioters come from at least 42 states outside of Washington, D.C. Among those arrested whose home states were known, the most were from Texas, with 27 Texans charged so far. New York had 24 residents arrested, while Florida had 23, and Pennsylvania had 22. Authorities have connected at least 46 alleged rioters to extremist groups, including the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3 Percenters, Texas Freedom Force, and the conspiracy group QAnon. These are who keep showing themselves. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen an Antifa through any of this
stuff.
What
3 percenters? What is that? That's funny.
Yeah.
We'll give 3%. Whatever.
At least 30, unless they're like, we're the 3 percenters of the. I don't know. I haven't looked them up. At least 34 of those arrested are current or former military members. Of those, 3 are currently enlisted in the military, 2 in the Army Reserve and 1 in the National Guard, according to military service records and court documents obtained by CBS News.
Well, that'll ruin their careers.
Of the former military members, at least 15 have served in the U.S. Marines, 11 served in the Army, 2 served in the Navy, and 2 served in the Air Force. At least 5 of those arrested were employed as law enforcement officers at the time of the riot, and at least 3 of those arrested had previously worked as police officers. Prosecutors also charged 1 current firefighter and 1 retired firefighter. The government said in a filing Friday, March 12th, so this is just recent, that while most cases brought so far have been against individuals, the government is investigating conspiratorial activity that occurred before and during the attack. So far, at least 20 have been charged with conspiracy, a charge that alleges they coordinated with others to commit an offense. And many interviews I've heard, this is me speaking, and in many interviews I've heard Trump supporters who breached the Capitol say they did it because their president told them to stop the steal. So there were a lot of reports that were saying these people came like armed, like bulletproof vests, vests that like you get if you're police, if you're military, zip ties, batons. I mean, these people came with these kinds of things that the average.
Weren't some armed?
I don't think so. Guns were not to be permitted, and
inside.
Yeah, I thought
there was
the whole rally deal. I don't think they brought guns. They brought anything and everything else they could bring, but I don't know. I don't think they brought guns. Well, they may have had them in their cars. I don't know. Or concealed, but I don't think anybody used them.
Used them or anything, but I thought...
Except for the officer inside the Capitol when he shot, and the first girl in got shot.
Right. Well, he was like the Secret Service kind of guy again, or the...
Capitol Police.
Capitol Police, yeah. But not like in the uniform.
Van der Veen argued that Trump was not directly involved in inciting the storming of the U.S. Capitol because the violence began before Trump began speaking. That's actually not true. The USA Today timeline published 11 a.m. Trump's Save America rally begins first with the president's son Eric and Donald Trump Jr. then his lawyer Rudy Giuliani. Trump starts speaking at about 11:50 a.m. and speaks for more than an hour. 12:15, Trump tells the crowd to head to the Capitol and that you'll never take back our country with weakness. 1 p.m., lawmakers gather for a joint session in the House of Representatives chamber to count electoral college votes. 1:10 p.m., around the end of his speech, Trump returns to the idea of fighting for the country and urged those assembled to walk to the Capitol. We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore, Trump said. So we are going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue, and we are going to the Capitol.
And I'm going to walk with you or be with you. I remember him saying that.
1:10 p.m., rioters begin grappling with police on the Capitol steps. Okay, so the Trump attorney said Trump was not directly involved in inciting the storming of the U.S. Capitol because the violence began before Trump began speaking.
It coincides with his timing. So they're already down there at 1:10. He just finished his speech at 1:10.
Well, at 1:10 is he didn't just finish his speech. At 1:10 is he's saying we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. But he started speaking at Trump starts speaking at 11:50 a.m. And the rioters began grappling at 1:10.
Well, and he spoke for about an hour, so that would put it at 12:50, which is 20 minutes from this time period.
Yeah, so he wasn't done speaking yet, and they were a bunch of them already down there. But this attorney's trying to say the riot began before Trump even began speaking, which is a lie.
But they started walking down to that. Wonder how long of a walk it is from that speech podium.
Well, it's not too far, because even when they got down there, you could still, from that view with people filming, hear Trump speaking. But he had already been speaking.
Yeah,
he just hadn't finished yet, and some of these people had already started marching over
That
there.
doesn't mean anything unless you can eyesight it, because if they have speakers along the grounds, you'll hear it no matter where you are. So you got to be able to see the distance or know the distance.
Yeah, I know it.
But
From what I've seen, it's not far.
Anyway, they started walking before he finished, and then they kind of expected him to be there with them based on what he said. Never showed up, and then everybody just started doing their thing.
Well, so the truth is, rioters began grappling with police before Trump finished his speech, but not before he began his speech.
Right, but even still, what does it say right here? Is that when he finishes?
No, Trump starts speaking at 11:50 and speaks for more than an hour.
More than an hour, okay.
12:15, he tells the crowd to head to the Capitol. At 12:15, they'll never take the ball, blah, blah, blah. 1:10 is when rioters began grappling with police.
But we don't have the time that he finished his speech.
I don't know, I haven't finished yet.
Got it.
GOP Senator Bill Cassidy of LA asked about Trump's tweet criticizing... Yeah, I guess maybe I don't have the time he ended. But if he began at 11:50 and it was more than an hour...
Right. So it'd be 12:50 to 1 o'clock.
Yeah, and I know when these guys got down there, you could hear him still talking and finishing up. Okay, so where are we? GOP Senator Bill Cassidy of LA asked about Trump's tweet criticizing Pence moments after having been told by another senator that the vice president had just been evacuated. Van der Veen responded that at no point was the president informed of any danger. Senator Tom Tuberville, Republican Alabama, said that he spoke with then President Trump on January 6th and told him that then Vice President Pence was being evacuated as rioters descended on the Capitol. Again, we have two different stories here. So Cassidy said Trump Trump, at no point was the president, Trump, informed of Pence being in danger.
Right.
Tuberville said that he spoke with then President Trump on January 6th and told him that then Vice President Pence was being evacuated as rioters descended on the Capitol. I said, Mr. President, they just took the Vice President out. I've got to go. It had previously been known that Tuberville and Trump spoke. The fact that the Alabama senator told the president that Pence was in danger is a potentially useful nugget for the Democrats' impeachment managers who are trying to convince Senate Republicans that Trump egged on the mob and then did nothing to quell the violence once it erupted. Trump, who has never addressed the danger to Pence, sent out a tweet around the time of his call with Tuberville saying the then vice president did not have the courage to halt the certification of the Electoral College results.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he said regarding Pence.
Yeah, boy. Good friend to have.
Rioters were heard on Capitol Hill chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," over his refusal to unilaterally subvert the election results. President Trump had said at his Save America rally, "I hope Mike is going to do the right thing." Yeah, go against our Constitution and our democracy and override, send all the votes back for certification so that Georgia and everybody else can recount them another time, or let the people vote all over again so that I can win it and get more time to gain more votes.
Yeah.
President Trump had said at his Save America rally, "I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election." The crowd cheers. Oh, this is from the number one, or certainly one of the top constitutional lawyers in our country. He has the absolute right to do it. We're supposed to protect our country, support our Constitution, and protect our Constitution. States want to revote. The states got defrauded. They were given false information. They voted on it. Now they want to recertify. They want it back. No, I don't think so. You do. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify, and we become president, and you are the happiest people. The crowd cheers. This is what Trump is saying. And I just spoke to Mike. I said, "Mike, that doesn't take courage. What takes courage is to do nothing. That takes courage. And then we're stuck with a president who lost the election by a lot. And we have to live with that for 4 more years. Guilt trip, guilt trip, guilt trip. We're just not going to let that happen." And you can hear the angry mob chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," and looking for him in the Capitol. On Thursday, they, the impeachment managers, described in stark personal terms the terror they faced that January. Some of it in the very Senate chambers where senators now are sitting as jurors. They used security video of rioters searching menacingly for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Vice President Mike Pence, smashing into the building and engaging in bloody hand-to-hand combat with police. Senators on Friday were allowed to submit written questions to both the defense lawyers and House managers. Senators questioned when Trump learned of the breach at the Capitol and what steps he took to end the violence. Trump lawyer Van der Veen avoided a direct answer to such questions.
Really?
House managers said the attacks were being broadcasted on live TV as they occurred, adding he knew what was underway. He knew the Capitol Police were overwhelmingly outnumbered in a fight for their lives, but he did not send any tweet saying, "Stop, this is wrong, you must go back," but we still have not learned of any steps taken because the answer is nothing. The case is speeding toward a vote and likely acquittal after all is done. Oh, we're just going to acquit him. perhaps as soon as Saturday, with the Senate evenly divided between Democrats and Republicans and a 2/3 majority required for conviction. Trump attorney Michael Van der Veen maintained in closing arguments that Democrats were hypocritical for impeaching Trump over a heated pre-riot speech and said the proceeding was unconstitutional. Throughout the summer, Democrat leaders, including the current president and vice president, repeatedly made comments that providing moral comfort to mobs attacking police officers. Okay, what? Throughout the summer, Democrat leaders, including the current president and vice president, repeatedly made comments that provided moral comfort to mobs attacking police officers, Van der Veen said. Van der Veen said that the Capitol break-in that disrupted certification of President Biden's victory and left 5 dead actually was pre-planned and premeditated by fringe left and right groups. The gathering on January 6 was supposed to be an entirely peaceful event, Van der Veen said. He argued that local officials failed to provide adequate security for the Capitol. So now we're going to try to make it their fault. GOP senator attempts to blame Nancy Pelosi, not Trump, for the Capitol riot as impeachment trial looms.
Why not? Let's see who else we can bring into this.
Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin claimed that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and not President Donald Trump was to blame for the riot at the U.S. Capitol.
Where does this Ron Johnson from Wisconsin all of a sudden pop his head in thinking he knows what's going on?
Well, this is where they all pipe up.
They want their moment in the limelight, I guess.
He didn't cite any evidence saying, Senator Ron Johnson didn't cite any evidence. They just make these statements, these claims, these accusations, and be like, it's that, with no evidence. I deal with this every day on Facebook. All these claims with no evidence.
Wow.
Or very little of.
Wow.
And then when the evidence they provide, I research it, I'm like, no, that's not what happened. That's not what you think it is. It's this. And then dismiss. No. And then this.
Yeah, right.
So he didn't cite any evidence, saying only that he was suspicious. Well, a few Republicans have spoken out against Trump. Others have steadfastly defended him. One element of that has been attempting to shift the blame elsewhere. Seeking to defend Trump, Johnson suggested, without evidence, that the impeachment was part of a plot to divert attention from Pelosi.
That's it.
Is this another diversionary operation? Is this meant to deflect away from potentially what the speaker knew and when she knew it, Johnson said? I don't know, but I'm suspicious.
I don't know, but I'm going to speak it out like I'm...
And I'm going to plant these seeds of doubt and discord.
Exactly.
See where that takes us in social media and in the world.
He must come from a criminal lawyer background.
Mark Meadows, the former White House chief of staff, also tried to shift the blame for the riot away from Trump. Meadows said that the U.S. Capitol Police do a tremendous job, but they need to be empowered to do that job. And there were plenty of assets there to assist them in their efforts, and some of those decisions weren't made appropriately, in my opinion, and those decisions did not come from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It came from the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, he continued, referring to the Capitol. Supporters of Trump on social media have baselessly blamed Pelosi for the breach. This is social media for you. But the House Speaker has no role in day-to-day policing operations of the Capitol. The Associated Press reported in a fact check of the claims. Okay, so the House Speaker, Pelosi, has no role in day-to-day policing operations of the Capitol. Lindsey Graham, ignoring Trump's role in riot, bashes Pelosi for weak Capitol security. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican South Carolina, expressed outrage over the deadly Capitol riot, pointing a finger at House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, for not doing more to secure the building instead of at President Donald Trump, whose rhetoric inspired the violence. During an appearance on Fox News, Graham called on his fellow Republicans to unite against Trump's impeachment despite the insurrectionist attack on the Capitol, which left at least 5 people dead. I understand What happened on January 6th was one of the low points in my time in office, Graham said, one of Trump's most vocal defenders on cable news. Now, we're going to get a little bit in here into Lindsey Graham. The rank hypocrisy of Senator Lindsey Graham on President Donald Trump is laid bare in a searing new attack ad footage of Graham blasting Trump as a, quote, jackass, kook, crazy, and unfit for office before the 2016 election is due to post, with clips of him later lavishing praise on the president, even calling for him to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Nice. The 81-second spot produced by the new Democratic Lindsey Must Go super PAC slams the senator as spineless, shameless, and dangerous, and calls for him to be voted out of office in the November election. Graham, now one of Trump's most reliable congressional defenders, faces tough competition from Democratic challenger Jamie Harrison. Okay, so back in 2016, Lindsey Graham is saying all this stuff, blasting Trump as a jackass, a kook, crazy, unfit for office. And then
4 years later,
he's like calling for him to win
his best friend
the Nobel Peace Prize. And then what here? Then the Democratic Lindsey Must Go super PAC slams the senator as spineless, shameless, and dangerous, and calls for him to be voted out of office in the November election. But Graham, now one of Trump's most reliable congressional defenders, faces tough competition from the Democratic challenger Jamie Harrison. So a new ad opposing the re-election of U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina uses his own words against him, noting that he's gone from calling Donald Trump a kook and a bigot to deeming him a damn good president. Oh my gosh. The ad highlighting the two faces of Lindsey Graham from a super PAC called Lindsey Must Go contrasts old Lindsey with new Lindsey.
Nice.
It shows, among other things, old Lindsey referring to Trump as a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot, then new Lindsey saying the president deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, and then some. Oh gosh. This is what has happened to these people. I mean, wow.
They get under his spell somehow. I don't get it.
It is so weird. Lindsey Graham continued, "It was horrendous to see people take over the Capitol, the House, and the Senate, beat officers, defile the seat of government. How in the hell did that happen?" I'll tell you how it happened. Yeah. Where was Nancy Pelosi? It's her job to provide Capitol security. We'll get to the bottom of that. Pelosi's deputy chief of staff, Drew Hamill, berated Graham on Twitter in response to the GOP lawmakers' accusation. This disgraceful attempt to shift blame from the mob attack on the Capitol is absurd and pathetic, Hamill wrote. He need only look in the mirror if he wants to start pointing a finger. He has repeatedly cast doubts on results of a fair election and dangerously fanned flames of right-wing quackery. The U.S. Capitol Police are, in fact, charged with protecting Congress. The force, composed of more than 2,300 officers and employees, is governed by the Capitol Police Board, which is made up of 3 voting members, the House Sergeant at Arms, the Senate Sergeant at Arms, and the Architect of the Capitol. U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund, House Sergeant at Arms Paul Irving, and Senate Sergeant at Arms Michael Stenger have resigned their positions in the wake of the attack. However, Architect of the Capitol Brett Blanton, whom Trump nominated for the position in December 2019, hasn't stepped down. Sund told NPR that just 2 days before the attack, he had asked Irving for additional assistance from the National Guard in helping to protect the Capitol, but his request was denied. Sund said he believes Stenger had told Irving that an increased military presence would be bad optics. Now, I do remember hearing that they felt if they start really arming up our Capitol, that we're going to look like the Middle East people.
What does it matter?
Well, but they didn't think that the Capitol would be rioted or breached. It's never happened before. Right. So they had police there to make sure the protesters remained peaceful. And they had the fencing, like, this is as far as you go. And they had the permit Well, they had the permit to come and protest, and all protests in America are supposed to be peaceful. And so that's what they were expecting. And they were not expecting. Of course, when has the Capitol ever been breached? It hasn't. In our lifetime or several prior. So then this all happens.
Yeah.
So Lindsey Graham's flip-flopping positions on Trump's efforts to overturn the election have drawn backlash and mockery from Democrats and some media pundits. After weeks of helping Trump peddle his baseless claims of widespread election fraud, Graham made an impassioned speech from the Senate floor hours after the Capitol riot, stating that President-elect Joe Biden lawfully won the race. So he's confessing Joe Biden won the race. So now Graham's going to be on Trump's hit list.
So 4 years from now, he'll be switching that around.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office fired back at House Republicans who demanded answers regarding security decisions leading up to and on the day of the Capitol riot last month, saying they are clearly trying to deflect responsibility for the Capitol attack from Donald Trump. But Pelosi's Deputy Chief of Staff, Drew Hamill, told Fox News that the Speaker has and will continue to take action to ensure accountability and enhance the security of the Capitol. 2 of the 4 House Republican ranking members voted to overturn the results of a fair election just hours after the Capitol was sacked by an insurrectionist right-wing mob, a mob incited by Trump. Hamill said a full 65% of House Republicans joined them in voting to undermine our democracy. All 4 ranking members also voted against holding Donald Trump accountable for inciting the mob, Hamill added. Clearly, the security of our Capitol and democracy are not the priorities of these ranking members. The Republicans, in their letter to Pelosi, questioned when then Chief's son made a request for National Guard support on January 4th. Why was that request denied? Did Sergeant at Arms Paul Irving get permission or instruction from your staff on January 4th prior to denying Chief's son's request for the National Guard? Davis, Jordan, Comer, and Nunes pointed to claims made by former Capitol Police Chief's son that he, on January 4th, approached the Sergeant at Arms to request the assistance of the National Guard. Sund, in a letter to Pelosi last month, said Irving replied that he was concerned about the optics and didn't feel the intelligence supported it. As you are aware, the Speaker of the House is not the only leader of the majority party, but also has enormous institutional responsibilities, they wrote. The Speaker is responsible for all operational decisions made within the House. The House Sergeant at Arms and the Senate Sergeant at Arms, Michael Stenger, were removed from their positions, and Chief Sund resigned after the riot. It is the job of the Capitol Police Board, on which these 3 individuals sat, to properly plan and prepare for security threats facing the U.S. Capitol, Hamill said. It has been reported that the House Sergeant at Arms, Paul Irving, has said that he did not present to House leadership any request for the National Guard before January 6th. Hamill noted that the committees of jurisdiction were briefed in advance of January 6th about security preparedness. During a briefing of the Appropriations Committee majority on January 5th by the House Sergeant at Arms, Paul Irving, and U.S. Capitol Police Chief Sund, both Chief Sund and Mr. Irving provided assurances that the Capitol complex had comprehensive security and there was no intelligence that groups would become violent at the Capitol during the certification of electoral votes. So they weren't expecting it to become violent.
Right.
It is our understanding that Ranking Member Davis was also briefed but took no action to address any security concerns that he might have had. Davis's office, in response, told Fox News that no one is alleging that Ranking Member Davis denied a request for the National Guard ahead of January 6th because he would not have the authority to do so, even if he had been made aware of the request, which he was not. Following the insurrection, the Speaker immediately tasked General Honore with leading an immediate security review of the U.S. Capitol complex and has called for a 9/11 style commission to investigate, with legislation creating such a panel to be introduced in the coming days. Hamill said the USCP is also conducting an internal security review. Republicans took issue with Pelosi's appointment, saying it was done without consultation of the minority. But again, Hamill fired back, calling Republicans' demands a transparently partisan attempt to lay blame on the Speaker, who was a target of assassination during the insurrection fueled by the lies of House Republicans. And so, not only they're trying to blame her for the Capitol, that they breached the Capitol, but she was a target of the assassination.
I know.
While this breach was happening.
Yeah.
And said that the ranking members are trying to absolve former police chief's son, former Sergeant at Arms Stanger, and the leader who appointed him, Mitch McConnell, of any responsibility. We look forward to these ranking members asking these same questions of former Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Hamill said. Hamill also added that Pelosi knows all too well the importance of security at the Capitol and is focused on getting to the bottom of all issues facing the Capitol complex and the events that led up to the insurrection, he added. Clearly, these Republican ranking members do not share this priority. I also remember, and you will too, that right after this is where she said, get, what are those called when you enter in and you have to pass through
Metal detectors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She wanted metal detectors put in and people to not bring guns into the chambers, and all the Republicans got very, well, not all, but a lot, I don't know about all, a lot of the Republicans got very angry. But she's trying to tighten up security.
Right.
And then they're like, this isn't going to protect us from the mob that happened last night. She's like, but now I'm trying to protect us from each other.
Right.
Based on what's going on in all of this.
Right.
And leave your guns in your offices.
Right.
Do not bring them into the chamber.
There's got to be some safe places, you know.
So she's trying to instill safety and security.
Wow.
And then when she did that the next day, the Republicans rebutted and rebuked her, and then what? They're like, she's just trying to control everything. And then how come she didn't control that? That's all her fault.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Yep.
Really?
Don't even try. Wow.
You want to keep going, or are you beaming in the light here?
Why don't you just try to finish this page, or see where you're at? That'll be fine.
Okay.
If you're okay.
Is that still? Yeah. Okay. Former Senator John Danforth, Republican of Missouri, said February 3rd that the Senate should convict Donald Trump in the impeachment trial to begin in mere days. Danforth told PBS Judy Woodruff, if what he did doesn't warrant conviction, what does? Now remember, we actually saw that. In response to questions about whether the trial is even constitutional, he pointed to legal scholars who say it is, before saying the more important question is what the position of the GOP is regarding Trump and what he did to our country. Anything other than a strong vote of conviction by Republicans is going to be viewed, rightly so, as condoning Trump, he added. Woodruff noted what many Republican senators have said dismissing the trial thus far. Danforth said they're just looking for some reason to duck the vote and avoid condemning the former president. I don't think we can afford to do that anymore, Danforth said, asking if Trump will be defining the GOP for the foreseeable future. Okay, so yeah, he had said if what he did doesn't warrant conviction, what does? Right. And he believes convicting him is constitutional. So, former Senator John Danforth, a key backer of fellow GOP Missourian, Senator Josh Hawley, in the 2018 Republican primaries, called that support the worst mistake of my life after pro-Trump mobs breached the Capitol Wednesday, seeking to halt Congress's affirmation of the 2020 election results. Supporting Josh and trying so hard to get him elected to the Senate was the worst mistake I ever made in my life, Danforth told St. Louis Today in an interview published Thursday. Yesterday was the physical culmination of the long attempt to foment a lack of public confidence in our democratic system, he added. It is very dangerous to America to continue pushing this idea that government doesn't work and that voting was fraudulent. Danforth earlier this week sharply criticized Hawley's announcement that he would raise objections to President-elect Joe Biden's Electoral College victory in key states when Congress certified the results Wednesday. Numerous critics of Hawley have accused him of helping incite the riot, including former Republican National Committee Chair Michael Steele, while several GOP senators who had said they would object reversed themselves after order was restored. Hawley proceeded. He's also the one, there's a photograph of him where he's walking along and he's doing that thing like Trump. So this is
like
where
Hitler, you mean? Yeah.
So this is where Danforth is like, worst mistake of my life, because Hawley not only fought against or stood against Biden's approval in that electoral college vote that night or that afternoon, but then he continued doing it even after they reassembled after the mob. He still wanted to fight against it. Okay. The Senate is very familiar to me, said Danforth, who served from 1976 to 1995. To see it under attack was awful. It was unimaginable. Even some of Hawley's current GOP colleagues have implied he bears some blame for the riots, though they have not called him out by name. Senator Tom Cotton, Republican Arkansas, placed blame on some senators who, for political gain, misled supporters about their ability to challenge the election results. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on here in support of all this. The Senate reversed course on Saturday, February 13th, and declined to call witnesses in former President Donald Trump's impeachment trial.
They didn't need it. They thought they had this thing in the bag.
After a surprise...
They only need 2 hours, 3 hours max.
Well, and what's so bizarre is in his first impeachment trial, they did not bring in witnesses. So this is 2 impeachment trials, no witnesses.
They don't think they need it. They're that confident. Pride before the fall.
So the Senate reversed course, declined to call witnesses. You know, and when they did it the first time, they declined to call witnesses, and that was just because then, well, we didn't hear any of these truths from these witnesses, so now we can acquit them. So don't let the witnesses speak. After a surprise vote, it's actually coming from the Senate. It wasn't coming from the lawyers. It was coming from the Senate, who were like, we're not even going to listen to witnesses. We don't want to hear the witnesses. So that happened in the first impeachment trial, and then again now. This is how this is how he's skating by all this stuff. He's got these senators wrapped around his finger, and he's got so much power and control over them, they'll do anything for him.
I know, I don't get it.
So then if we don't bring in the witnesses, we can't hear what they have to say,
Right.
and we don't want to hear them,
Right.
because then that might... We already planned to acquit them, so we're not going to listen to witnesses.
Yeah.
So after a surprise vote allowing testimony threatened to delay the process. Yeah, because it'll delay the process.
Right, of course.
After reaching an agreement to bypass calling the witnesses, the House impeachment managers and Trump lawyers moved on to up to 4 hours of closing arguments. According to most reports and analysts of the impeachment process of President Trump, the Democrats wanted a bevy of witnesses to testify at the Senate trial, while the Republicans steadfastly refused to permit those with allegedly damning evidence to be heard. In fact, the Senate even had a debate and a vote to determine if such witnesses should testify or not. Why wouldn't those with direct knowledge of the high crimes and misdemeanors of which Trump had been charged be permitted to present their case? Most Democrats and their followers argue the Senate Republicans were participating in a cover-up of the president's obvious violations in office, while Republicans argued back that the House had the responsibility to present their case to the Senate and did so, confident they had enough evidence to convict him, making further testimony irrelevant. Lawyers for both sides reached an agreement in Donald Trump's second impeachment trial not to call witnesses, hours after the Senate had voted in favor of allowing them. I don't know, that's all weird and confusing. The unexpected 55 to 45 vote to allow witnesses, which included 5 Republicans, was prompted with when more details emerged about a January 6th call between House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy and Trump. Impeachment manager Representative Jamie Raskin called for testimony from Jamie Herrera Butler, Republican Washington, who confirmed the details of the call in which Trump brushed off requests to make a statement that might quell the ongoing insurrection. Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, of Washington State, issued a statement. So instead of her coming in and actually testifying, she did issue a statement confirming that in the middle of the insurrection, when House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called the president to beg for help, President Trump responded, and I quote, "Well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are," Raskin said. But instead of calling Herrera Butler as a witness, lawyers made a deal to enter her statement into the official record. Needless to say, this is an additional critical piece of corroborating evidence, further confirming the charges before you, as well as the presidential's willful dereliction of duty and desertion of duty as commander of the U.S., his state of mind, and his further incitement of the insurrection on January 6, Raskin added. On Friday, Herrera Butler released a statement pleading with fellow Republicans who also heard Trump side with the mob that day. To the patriots who were standing next to the former president and these conversations were happening, or even to the former vice president, if you have something to add here, now would be the time, the Congresswoman said.
Let's see, that's going.
I got a space here.
Mm-hmm.
The first impeachment of Donald Trump occurred when Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, was impeached by the House of Representatives of the 116th United States Congress on December 18, 2019. This was his first impeachment trial.
Yeah, do you think that would be a good place to start the next taping?
No, I'll just finish this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just
Okay.
read it again then. Just start right there again.
Well,
yeah, just start right there again.
okay. The first impeachment of Donald Trump occurred when Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, was impeached by the House of Representatives of the 116th United States Congress on December 18th, 2019. The first impeachment. The House adopted 2 articles of impeachment against Trump: abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Okay.
This is a good friend of ours' birthday.
Who? What?
He's a big Trump supporter too. I'll tell you later.
The Senate acquitted Trump on these charges on February 5th, 2020. Trump's impeachment came after a formal House inquiry alleged that he had solicited foreign interference in the 2020 U.S. presidential election to help his re-election bid, and then obstructed the inquiry itself by telling his administration officials to ignore subpoenas for documents and testimony. The inquiry reported that Trump withheld military aid and an invitation to the White House to Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in order to influence Ukraine to announce an investigation into Trump's political opponent Joe Biden and to promote a discredited conspiracy theory that Ukraine, not Russia, was behind interference in the 2016 presidential election. A phone call between Trump and Zelensky on January 25, 2019 was particularly important. Whistleblower Alexander Vindman was a participant in the call and later informed Congress. The trial saw no witnesses or documents being subpoenaed, as Republican senators rejected attempts to introduce subpoenas. On February 5th, Trump was acquitted on both counts by the Senate, as neither count received 67 votes to convict. Let's stop right there.